Wind, go away. Come in some other day, boy. Hello everybody, welcome to my childhood. This is Stroppe in Halle, and this is where I spent a lot of my childhood. I'm here because I needed some grass, because today I'll be telling you everything about the Bonfus Duos 2P, 2 persons tent. It's a 2 persons single wall DCF-tent. It's made in Italy, and I've used it on my long distance trails in the summer of 2024, so just now. Let's see how I liked it. If I liked it. Did I like it? I don't know. But before I tell you all that juicy, jazzy, juicy stuff, let me set it up. People at home, everybody will have a different setting up system, so to each their own. I just thought it might be handy to include it for people that are new to the tent and that have never worked with this kind of tent before. So let's go. So the first thing I do when I get to camp and I want to set up my tent is to put my trekking poles at the right height. For this tent, they need to be between 125 and 130 centimeters. That way they are ready to go when I need them. Then I grab my tent and I lay it open. Here it is, honeys. Then I take 4 stakes and I'm gonna stake out the 4 corners, but not too tight because otherwise there is no room anymore for the poles. So just very loosely stake the 4 corners. Let's go. I always make sure that the ropes are as long as they can be, so that later in the process I have a lot of room to tighten the tent. Small detail, but important. Then step 2 is putting in the poles, and for that I use these kind of stakes because for that position the cord sometimes tends to pull up and then it jumps off and your tent is all over the place. So I like a stake that keeps the cords into place. So let's take the poles and insert them. Ah yes. For that I like to open the zipper but still close the clip at the bottom so I can see the pole, so I can see if it's straight, but the tent still has this tension with the closed clip, so you get the right tension with all the cords and everything. Alright, let's put in the poles. Alright, second pole. Make sure it's not taking the mesh. So just the tent, and then pull this side so this line is tightened out, and I secure it with a stake. And then I tighten this cord. So now there are 6 stakes in the ground and only these 2 cords are tightened out. So what I do now is I make 2 rounds around the tent and I pull each corner guy line just a little bit more each time. Not like everything in one pull, because then one corner is very tight and the others aren't. So just slowly, 2 rounds. Let's go. Here, a little bit here. And then I pull these points, which won't be needing a lot. And then, this is optional, but I always do it because it gives me a little more headspace. There are 2 additional guy lines on the walls, and I'm gonna secure those. Same principle, make the cord as long as possible, stake it, and then tighten it. It's the way to go. And then I do a final round to tighten every corner, because this has just given each corner a little bit more room to tighten it very tight. Now, setting up your tent very tightly, you will probably know, is the way to go. Rain can drop off very easily. Condensation inside the tent can also slide down very easily. And if there's a lot of wind, it won't flap as much. So tighten it very well and your night's sleep will thank you a lot. This is the tent, the Bonfus Duos 2P. If I stand next to it, I am this tall, so it's a pretty tall tent, but I'll get into that when I go over the specs. Now, as you can see, this is my crib. This has been my house on the long distance trails that I've done this summer. Now, let's get into the numbers. It's a 3-season tent. The height can go up to 130 centimeters, but of course that depends on how high you pitch your poles. But the best height is around 125 or 130 centimeters. The length is 280 centimeters. And the width is 115 centimeters. And then you have the vestibule depth, that's around 60 to 65 centimeters. So a backpack can easily lay in the vestibule. It weighs 675 grams, excluding the stuff sack, because that's an additional 13 grams. And the tent is made out of DCF. So it's a single wall tent. It's made with Dyneema fabric. It's all over the place now. You've got Z-Packs, you've got Durston, you've got Bonfus, you've got other brands that are really getting into the Dyneema fabric. And mainly that's because it's so lightweight. In the lightweight trend, this fabric is doing very well. The floor, however, the floor of the tent is made of sil poly fabric. I actually like it because it has a smaller pack size. It's also a bit softer on the feet, but the most important thing is that it wears down more slowly. DCF fabric, if you roll it up a lot, if you stand on it a lot, you put stuff on it, like it gets folded a lot, it wears down and then it starts to be not so leak proof anymore. With sil poly, you don't have that problem. I have to add that they do make it with a DCF floor as well, so choice is yours. I took a sil poly, you can go for a DCF if you want to. The waterproofness is more than 20,000 millimeters, which is a lot. I can confirm this tent has seen a lot of rain and it hasn't leaked once. Now, these were the specs. Let's talk about what I think. What do I think of this tent? I really like, well, I'm a fan of single wall tents. I know there's fans, there is no fans, there are neutral people. I belong to the camp of the fans of the single wall tents. I really like the weight. I really like the waterproofness. I don't really care about the disadvantages that it brings, which I will talk about later. So the weight, it's very lightweight. You can put it up with your trekking poles. It's a feather. It's a feather. Then the waterproofness, I've never had any troubles with water leaking in, stuff like that. And I pack it up wet in the morning, so that says a lot. And then this tent in particular, because it's so big, there is so much room. Oh my god. I am 175 centimeters and I can just lay in the tent like this, all the way like this, and I am not touching any walls whatsoever. It's really nice. Now also with this tent, I really like that the walls come so close to the ground. Actually, when it's windy, there is not a lot of wind coming in. It makes the tent also slightly warmer. It's like a bit more comfortable. And when it's raining, storming very hard, there is no rain coming from under there because the walls are so close to the ground. And then lastly, I really like that there's a zipper installed on the doors, because not every DCF tent has that system, but the zipper just closes everything down. So again, when it rains, when there's a lot of wind, you can just close yourself off of any outdoor conditions. And of course, I really like that I can set this up in 5 minutes, maximum 10 if the ground is a bit uneven, but it's just a super fast tent. Also, packing it up in the morning is less than 5 minutes because it's just removing all the stakes and rolling it up. I don't have to bother with poles or with the long lines of poles and like folding them up and everything. I don't have to bother with them. It's very fast. It packs up really small, so it's not so big in my pack. Mostly I attach it on top of my pack. But yeah, those are mainly the reasons why I love this tent. Now, Floor, not everything is perfect. Can you please talk about the disadvantages of this kind of tent? Of course, I can do that. The number one disadvantage of a tent like this is condensation. Like number one. It's a thing that people always ask me about. It's true, especially in colder conditions, in more humid conditions, there tends to be a lot of condensation in the tent in the morning. Now, I've said it before, if you tighten it up really well, then mostly the condensation just drips down and then down into the mesh. So if the condensation is not too bad and you've pitched it well, the condensation won't drip on you. But still, every morning, mostly when I wake up in my tent, there is a layer of condensation on my tent. How I deal with it is just I wake up and I take my pocket towel and I just go over the walls of the tent just once, and they're not dry, but voila. Now, I wouldn't recommend using this tent in very cold conditions, very humid conditions as well, because then I think condensation can be a pain in the... But as a 3-season tent, on all the trips that I've used it on, like Norway, even in the summer, Scotland in the summer, it's fine. In my opinion, it's fine. Then a second disadvantage of a tent like this is that it's not so warm. Okay, the walls there, they reach the ground very closely, but the vestibules don't, because obviously you want some wind flow to minimize condensation, but that means that there is a constant wind flow in the tent, which means that the tent is colder than a non-single wall tent. I deal with it with a very warm sleeping system. So I've got a very warm mattress, a very warm quilt, a sleeping bag liner. I put on down clothes and everything. So even in cold conditions, it's still okay for me. But it's a fact that the tent is colder. Period. So conclusion of the condensation and the temperature. This is really a 3-season tent, not a 4-season tent. Don't use this in winter, in very cold conditions, in very windy conditions, storms and everything. It can withstand a storm, definitely, because I did it, but it's not ideal. So for winter, I would say it's a no-go. And then with this particular tent, there is one more disadvantage that I can think of, and that is that the closing of the doors happens with attaching the guy lines behind the tent stake, which I don't really like, because you have to reach very far to like close the door or to open the door, and sometimes it's like a small mess with the guy lines all together on the same stake. I could fix this problem with using 2 stakes here, one for the long cord and one for the 2 doors. I think that's actually what you have to do, but then I don't want to take another stake and I don't want to stake another stake, so I stake all those 3 cords together. But that brings that problem that it can sometimes be a mess, and that opening the doors is not the easiest thing in the world. But if you are looking for a tent that is lightweight, easy to set up, that can be used in a lot of conditions but not winter, that's roomy, that can withstand a lot of rain, all the good jazz, I would say yes. This is my go-to tent. I love it. Voila. To be fully transparent, they did send this tent to me. I'm not getting paid to make this video, but they did send it to me to try it out. And I do have an affiliate link, which means that if you buy through the link that I'll be putting in the description, if you buy through that link, I get a small commission of the amount that you spend on the website. No worries. I genuinely love this tent. I wouldn't be using it on that many nights if I didn't like it, because if it would be a pain in the ass, it would have been gone after the first trip that I used it on. Yeah, I'm very happy with my tent. Also with the fact that it's European made, so no import costs, and good quality. I hope I touched on everything you wanted to know about this tent. If you still have some questions, put them in the comments down below. I read everything and I will try to answer everything. So that's it. I hope you have a wonderful day, and if you're planning for a next hike, I hope you have a wonderful hike and good luck. I will stop talking now. Bye!